Hello everybody, this is Ed from Miami. I tried to upload a lesson previously, but it was about 45 minutes long, had some technical difficulties, and I just couldn't do it. So what I'm going to try to do tonight is just basically give you a very concise lesson, right to the point. I'm going to try to teach you some music theory, and I just want to start by saying that I'm in no way a teacher for music theory. I have never taken a music theory lesson in my life. I'm going to leave that for the other very capable and very well learned teachers on this page. And by the way, I want to just give kudos to all the administration, all the mediators here. You guys are doing a great job. But anyway, what I want to do today is basically go into a little bit of basic music theory and how that music theory can be applied to your fretboard. And in that way, you can basically increase the number of chords that you will be able to play. So let's start talking about the chromatic scale. The chromatic scale is basically the music dictionary. I mean, it contains all of the musical notes in the music dictionary. The chromatic scale has 12 pitches, and out of those 12 pitches, you have 7 notes that are the primary notes, and those are being the A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then you're back to A. Those are basically, if you looked at a piano, those notes are the ones in the white keys. But you know that there are the black keys, and those black keys are what we call accidentals, and those are the sharps and those are the flats, and we're going to get into that. The chromatic scale is very easy. I want to make it a very easy concept here. The chromatic scale, if you think about it, the chromatic scale, like I said, there was 7 prime notes. And in the chromatic scale, every single note gets a sharp except for 2 of them. One being B and the other one being E. If you remember the word B, like let it be, that would be a basic concept for you to remember. That in the chromatic scale, every single note gets a sharp except for B and E. So in the chromatic scale, we have A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F sharp, G, and G sharp. And those are your 12 pitches in the whole chromatic scale. Now, how can we get that chromatic scale and apply it to our fretboard? Music theory is a concept. And unless you can apply it to the fretboard and get some use out of it, it's really useless. I mean, I guess people sit around, in a room and discuss music theory, and I'm sure it's a lot of fun for a lot of people. But I think I see it better when I am able to get or take a concept from music theory and apply it to my fretboard and improve my guitar playing. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that chromatic scale, which we know is the big daddy of them all, it has all the 12 pitches, and we're going to apply it to a fretboard and see how that is going to help us in increasing the number of chords that we can play. And also, if you want to move into scales, be it the pentatonic scale or the diatonic scale, knowing how to apply that chromatic scale to your fretboard is going to really help you out. First thing that I want to do is, and this is really basic, but I think this is necessary to go over it. First, you need to know the 6 strings on your guitar. The first string, the low E, and we have the A, then we have the D, we have G, we have B, and then the high E. And an easy way to remember that, and I'm sure you've heard this before, this is, I've heard this before and it helped me out, is Eddie, 8, dynamite, good, bye, Eddie. Again, it's Eddie, 8, dynamite, good, bye, Eddie. And those are your 6 strings on the guitar, which is very important for you to know those, okay? Also, something that I think you should know by now is the open chords, the 5 main open chords, which are C, A, G, E, and D. So tonight, what I'm going to concentrate on this lesson is I want to concentrate on one of those open chords, which is the E chord. And I'm hoping that you can go ahead and finger that. And you already know that. If you don't, I'm sure that in this page and all over the internet, there are many sources there that can teach you. But briefly, the index finger goes on the G string on the 1st fret. Then you have your middle finger going on the A string on the 2nd fret, and your ring finger going on the D string on the 2nd fret. And that is how I finger my E. Now, for tonight's lesson, I'm going to show you another way to finger that, and you will see how that's going to help you out in really increasing the number of chords that you'll be able to play. And listen, we're going to have to tackle the bar chords. Bar chords are probably one of the main reasons why people stop playing guitar. But you know what? That shouldn't be a reason. I mean, take a challenge. You know, I know they're not easy, but they are able to really expand the way that you play them on your fretboard. For example, I mean, if you have a G here, then you know you can have another G here. And that brings depth into your music. And if one guitar, if you're playing with a buddy and one guitar player is playing the G here, you can come down here and just add some more flavor to it. And I'm going to show you how the chromatic scale being applied to your fretboard will allow you to do that. Okay? So now, I want you to concentrate on the first open chord, which is E. Okay, now let's take the chromatic scale as we learned it, the 12 pitches, and we're going to apply it first to the E string. We're going to be concentrating on the E string because we're going to be working with the E open chord. Okay, so remembering that every single note in the chromatic scale gets a sharp except for B and E. If we start in E, we know that E is one of the notes that do not get a sharp. So what is the next note in the chromatic scale? F, which is your 1st fret. The next is, everyone gets an F. Sorry, everybody gets a sharp. So the next one will be F sharp. Then we go to G. The next one is G sharp. The next one is A. The next one is A sharp. The next one is B. And remember, B does not get a sharp. So we go right into C. C sharp. D. D sharp. And E. And C. Look at this. E, 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 E. That's called an octave. It's the same note. It's just that it's a pitch different. For example, this one is low and this one is high. And if you look at the frets, from the 12 on, it repeats itself again. It starts all over again. So, since the 1st fret, we know this is E. The next letter on the chromatic scale is F because there's no sharp in E. Guess what? On the 13th fret is F. Same thing. 2nd is F sharp. 14th fret, F sharp. G, G on the 15th fret. So after the 12th fret, regardless of how many frets you have in your guitar, because all guitars are different, it repeats itself from the 1st on. Okay? Now, let's go over this again. On the E note, the next note on the chromatic scale, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, no sharp with a B, so we'll go right into C, C sharp, D, D sharp, and the octave of E. Now, you've also heard flats. You have sharps and flats. Those are called accidentals. They're not the prime notes. So now, sharp, I've always thought of sharp as raising the tone. In other words, if you go from F to F sharp is higher than F. But look at this, G comes next, right? Well, flat, to me, when I think of flat, I think of a flat tire. It lowers the note. So G, if we flatten, if we lower it, now this is G flat. So F sharp is the same thing as G flat. F sharp and G flat is what's called an enharmonic, meaning that it's the same note. So if somebody were to ask you to play, well, play a G sharp, and the other person says play a G flat, it's the same exact thing. Look at this. G, you have G sharp, we raised it, we sharpened it up. Here is A. If we flatten it down like a flat tire, G sharp and A flat is the same exact note. It's an enharmonic. The same thing happens with A. A sharp and B flat is the same exact note. So just remember that in a chromatic scale where you have your prime notes A, B, C, D, E, F, and G, and you have the sharps in between, they are also flats because they are the same note. Now, if we remember, E does not get a sharp, and B does not get a sharp. So therefore, you will not find a C flat because there's no such thing as a B sharp. B goes right into C. Here's a good time also to explain to you the difference between half steps and whole steps. And that will become important later on. But if you look at the chromatic scale is composed of all half steps. They go from A to A sharp is a half step. A sharp to B is a half step. B, remember, no sharp. We go right into C is a half step. And the way you look at that in your fretboard is that on E to F goes to first fret. Look at this. F to F sharp, 1 fret. F sharp to G, 1 fret. G to G sharp, 1 fret. G sharp to A, 1 fret, and so on. Now, if we were to go from F to G, that's a whole step. A whole step is represented by 2 frets. G to A is a whole step. A to B is a whole step. A to A sharp is a half step. G to G sharp is a half step. Listen, look at this. B to C is a half step because there's no B sharp. Okay? Now, concentrating on the E open chord, I would like for this lesson for you to finger it this way. Use your middle finger and finger it the same way, except you are using your middle finger, your ring finger, and your pinky. And the reason that's going to be important is because since we have learned the notes on our 6th string from the chromatic scale, applying it here, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A, and so on. Now, when you finger the open E chord, this finger right here becomes the human capo. You got now a human capo. Watch this. Just move down the E and capo the first fret. And the first note on that 6th string, which we know is an F because we have applied the chromatic scale to that string, now that chord is an F chord. The name of the chord is dictated by the first note, which is F. Now, I want you to understand that. That's very important. We're fingering the E. The lowest note on that E chord is this. So we got E and E chord. So all we need to do now, concentrating on the 6th string, when we move down and we capo our finger, we just fingered an F chord because it's dictated by the 6th string, the 1st fret. Now watch this. Just move it down. Well, what is this note? We learned from the chromatic scale that on the 6th note, the 2nd fret is F sharp. Why? E, F, F sharp. Now, when we finger, we use the human capo and finger the E chord, F sharp. Now keep going. What is this note on the 6th string? It's G. And we're fingering the E and using the 6th string. This note is G. We know that because we apply the chromatic scale to this string. That's G. Now you know how to play G in 2 positions. The open, and yes, the all dreaded bar chord. But hey, you have to tackle the bar chord. You cannot just give up because they're difficult, okay? And now the next thing is the same thing. You move it down, G sharp. Now you're gonna say, how many times do I play G sharp? Listen, I get it, all right? But you made one time. And you know what? Now you know how to do it. Why? Because you're using the E fingering of the open chord to the 6th string, and you know that that 4th string here, applying the chromatic scale, that's the G sharp. Look at this. Move it again. What is this note? It's A. This is an A. So now you know how to do A 2 ways. A sharp, B, you got C, you got C sharp, you got D, you got D sharp, and you got E. So now you have just learned 12 additional chords just by knowing the chromatic scale and how to apply it to this string, the 6th string, and knowing your fingering of the E open chord. And I want you to make the connection, E open chord, E open. So this fingering, the notes on this string are going to dictate the bar chords that you got. Okay? So if you know that this is an A on the E string, by fingering the E chord and using the human capo on that fret, you have another A to play. Like a G, like an F, like a B, like a C. And it's all because of the notes on this 6th string. Got it? So let's just recap here. The chromatic scale, the big daddy of them all, containing all 12 pitches. A sharp, B, B doesn't get a sharp, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, and back to A, all 12 pitches. You can apply it on your 6th string, E, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B, C sharp, D sharp, E. Remember, 2 notes, do not get a sharp. B and E. Flats, instead of sharpening, going up, you go down. Same note and harmonic. I hope you guys enjoy the lesson. Leave me any comments or any questions. Keep rocking, guys. Take care.